It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning at my cabin, the kind of morning that settled into your bones like a quiet prayer. I had coffee steaming in one hand, pancakes on the skillet inside, and a crossword I didn't care about but worked on anyway, just to keep my mind sharp. The woods around me hummed their usual chorus, birds chattering, pine drifting sweet on the breeze. This was my sanctuary, a place the world couldn't touch, or so I thought. At first, the sound was faint, a low growl carried by the wind. I figured some kid down the road had finally managed to install subwoofers into a rust bucket truck. But it grew sharper, multiplied, until it became a scream across the hills. Sirens. Not one, not two, but a swarm. My coffee froze halfway to my lips as the noise built into a howl, echoing off the trees until it felt like the whole forest was wailing. Then came the lights. Red and blue slashed across the dirt road, tires screaming as patrol cars skidded in, one after another, surrounding my cabin like I was public enemy number one. The bullhorn cracked, a voice so loud it rattled the windows. "This is the police. Step out of the cabin with your hands up." I squinted into the flashing chaos, shielding my eyes with one hand. Hands up? For what? Forgetting to pay a library fine back in '84? Across the tree line, figures began to gather, like vultures circling roadkill. Of course, Karen was front and center, HOA badge of smug authority plastered across her face, binoculars glued to her eyes. She hissed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "They're taking him down once and for all." I tugged my suspenders like I was heading to church, not a standoff. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even rattled. Truth was, I'd been expecting something ridiculous since they mailed me a letter about excessive porch swing squeakage. I'd mailed them back an invoice for excessive care and squeakage, notarized for good measure. That was me being polite. Armed police at my doorstep? That was new. "Come out now or we'll come in." The bullhorn barked again. I sighed, muttering under my breath, "Fine, but if y'all didn't bring donuts, this is going to be a disappointing morning." I pushed open the door, coffee still in hand, and stepped onto the porch. Slowly, I lifted one arm, then the other, careful not to spill. The officers stiffened, hands hovering over their holsters. Karen gasped so theatrically it was like she'd been shot herself. "Gentlemen," I called out, calm as the breeze. "To what do I owe this noisy wake-up call?" The man in charge stepped forward, tall, with a mustache so thick it looked like it deserved its own badge. He barked back, "You're trespassing on HOA property. This cabin doesn't belong to you." I chuckled low. "Funny, last I checked, I've got the deed framed over the fireplace. Bought it fair and square in '78. Even paid an extra $20 for the seller's rocking chair. Still got both." His jaw tightened. "We've been ordered to impound this property immediately. Step aside." Neighbors leaned in closer, hungry for spectacle. Karen smirked, licking her lips like a cat that had cornered a mouse. I leaned against the porch post and sipped my coffee. "Impound, huh? That's a mighty big word for steal. But sure, go on, haul it away. Let's see you try." The officer motioned to his men, hand twitching toward his radio. That's when it happened. The nearest cruiser coughed, then choked. Another sputtered. Engines whined and died, one after another, until the entire fleet was nothing more than silent hulks. Officers scrambled, slamming doors, twisting keys, pumping pedals, but the cars were dead. Radios crackled with confusion. Karen lowered her binoculars, blinking. "What's going on? Why aren't they arresting him?" I set my mug on the railing, grinning. "Didn't I mention? You might want to check your glove compartments." Suspicion rippled through the squad. One officer leaned inside his cruiser, popped the glove box, and out slid a crisp, notarized document. His face drained as he read the header. Title of ownership. My name stamped across it. The others scrambled, popping glove boxes in unison. Documents tumbled out. Every single car, signed, sealed, mine. The crowd gasped. Karen dropped her binoculars in the dirt. The mustached officer's lips twitched. This can't be legal," I chuckled. "Son, not only is it legal, it's filed, stamped, and verified at the county clerk's office. You boys drove here today in my cars, which makes you trespassers." Silence hit like a thunderclap. Then the sheriff arrived, dust trailing his pickup like storm clouds. He stepped out, broad-shouldered, voice booming. "Now what in Sam Hill is going on?" The mustached officer nearly tripped over himself to explain, stammering about patrol cars and property rights. The sheriff flipped through the titles, whistling low. "Well, I'll be damned. You boys really did drive in on his cars. Karen screeched. Sheriff, you can't let this old man mock authority. He's undermining the HOA. The sheriff looked at her the way a man looks at a mosquito buzzing his ear. Ma'am, undermining the HOA ain't a crime, more like a public service. The neighbors roared, some clapping, some nearly falling over from laughter. Karen's face burned crimson. I folded my arms. Sheriff, these fellas are trespassing with vehicles that belong to me. I've got every right to impound them. Matter of fact, I already called a tow truck. Engines rumbled down the road right on cue. Karen shrieked. You can't tow police cars. That's chaos. I raised my mug. Chaos is just order in a fun hat. The tension kept rising. Karen flailed her arms, quoting HOA amendments, waving leather folders. But I had been patient, planning for this. She never noticed the clause I slipped into her own rules, subsection E, that gave me ownership rights first. Invalid, I finished, watching as their faces drained of color. The sheriff's expression was unrateable now, but Karen's eyes were wide with panic. She took a step back, her mouth working but no sound coming out. Gerald Huxley, the slick lawyer, looked like he'd just been hit with a freight train. His assistant dropped her clipboard with a loud clatter. Take that thing out of here, Karen yelled, waving her hands in a mix of desperation and disbelief. But no one was listening to her anymore. The neighbors were already surrounding me, some slapping me on the back, others demanding that Karen pay for their HOA fees. I looked at the sheriff, who was trying to hold back a grin. Well, Sheriff, I guess this is my neighborhood now. The officers chuckled, and one even whistled. Karen's face turned crimson. It was clear. Her reign was over. The power had shifted. Invalid. The neighbors went wild. Trampolines bounced back into the street. Flamingos reappeared on lawns. Karen shrieked, "This is mob rule." The sheriff shook his head. "No, ma'am, this is justice." They tried dragging me to court, clinging to their last hope. The judge was theirs. Karen whispered it proudly, certain it sealed my fate. I walked into that courtroom with nothing but my coffee mug. The gallery packed with neighbors, cheering, chanting. The HOA's lawyers sat awkwardly at Karen's side. They were mine now, technically on my payroll. The judge banged the gavel, stern and weary. The HOA raged, demanding my property, my assets. Karen clapped like a seal. Then I leaned back and said, Your Honor, before we waste time, you might want to check who signed your paycheck. The judge rifled through his folder, eyes narrowing. His face drained. This came from an account under Grandpa LLC. Gasps rattled the room. Karen's jaw snapped open. I tipped my mug. Bought the courthouse maintenance fund a while back. By some bookkeeping twist, that means your salary runs through me. So technically, you work for me. The courtroom exploded into chaos, neighbors cheering, officers high-fiving, Mrs. Dobbins fainting into her neighbor's arms. Karen screeched it was corruption. The judge adjusted his glasses, muttering, "Documentation appears valid." He turned to me. "What do you want?" I stood slowly, the room going quiet. "I want peace. I want my porch swing to squeak without a fine. I want my rooster to crow without punishment. I want neighbors to live free without being strangled by clipboards. And I want Karen to stop spying on my laundry line." The courtroom roared. Karen gasped. "That was one time." The judge raised his gavel. "This court finds the HOA acted without authority. All enforcement is dissolved. All fines and fees void. The charter invalid." The gallery erupted into a storm of cheers. Strangers hugged, officers clapped, the sheriff tipped his hat. Karen collapsed, muttering, "This was supposed to be my moment." Outside, they carried me on their shoulders like some victorious gladiator. Reporters shouted questions. "Grandpa, what's next?" I raised my mug. "Next? Maybe I'll buy the county fair. Always wanted free funnel cakes." The crowd chanted, "Funnel cakes! Funnel cakes!" Karen stormed away, vowing to start another HOA in the next county. No one cared. Later, as the sun bled into the horizon, the sheriff leaned close. "Tell me straight, did you really own the judge?" I chuckled, sipping my coffee. "Nah, that was just a funny loophole. Truth is, I don't need to own the judge. I just need to own the truth. And the truth is, people were sick of the HOA." The sheriff laughed, shaking his head. I smiled, watching the light fade over a community finally free. "Besides," I added, "I do own the courthouse vending machines, so technically justice is on my snack payroll."